Yo, what up? This is your boy Rama Screen, and here's my review of Quiet on Set, new episode 5, Breaking the Silence. I think that's the title of the episode. You can check my previous video review of the previous 4 episodes of Quiet on Set. And so, thank you to Discovery Plus channel or Investigation Discovery for granting me this 5th episode. Um, the review embargo lifts tomorrow on the same exact night as the premiere of this episode, and it really helped that I got this screener ahead of time because tomorrow is WrestleMania 40 Part 2. so so I want to get this out of the way. I want to make sure you get to watch my thoughts on this new episode 5 while I'll be watching wrestling that night. Um, and the setting here, as you can see, is different. It's a different format without graphics, without jump cuts and whatnot. Well, there'll be some jump cuts here, but not too noticeable. Because I want to break it down. I want to give you my analysis, like bullet point by bullet point by bullet point, based on what is discussed on this episode. Now, is this episode necessary? Do we need an episode 5, an extra episode? Um, it's not uncommon, okay? And this is not a criticism, because if you observed, other shows have done that. Like, I think Love is Blind, which is on Netflix, which is a reality show. They have an extra episode, kind of like an episode about where are they now, that kind of thing. Survivor also does that sometimes. Um, so yeah, I know some people who are really they're not against the docu, but they kind of feel suspicious about the docu. They're like, oh, this might be just a cash grab sort of a deal, like because the ratings were so hot on the previous 4 episodes. Now you want to capitalize it some more when 5th episode is not really needed. That's their argument. Like, oh, this turns out this is just this episode 5, just trying to really squeeze that money making again. No, maybe you can argue that, and you're entitled to your opinion. But I say that having watched this episode 5, I'm glad that it exists, because we get some more new insights from this interview setting. By the way, it is an interview setting. So journalist Soledad O'Brien, who is one of the journalists out there that I respect. Um, she did CNN show years ago, and she's quite progressive in her point of view. So she was giving the line of questioning to Drake Bell and all the others on this episode 5, and I guess that could be part of my review in that I think overall she did a good job in this episode on this episode 5. If I were to grade her, I would give her a B, not B plus, not B minus, just an exact B. Just a fairly good job on her line of questioning here. Now, the episode starts out with right off the bat with Drake Bell, with the Soledad O'Brien interview with Drake Bell. I would have preferred that Drake Bell be the last person to be interviewed, kind of like saving the best for last sort of a deal. You know what I'm saying? I get that though. But at the same time, I get that people who watch the previous 4 episodes, they just can't wait to hear more from Drake Bell, right? They just give me more, of Drake Bell, spilling beans, sharing some stuff anymore. So I get that starting with Drake Bell kind of makes sense, for you to kind of feed the audiences who are hungry to hear more from Drake Bell. But the thing is, right after that Drake Bell interview, and you're gonna watch it this Sunday night. Right after that Drake Bell interview, it's a couple of more cast members from All That, And I bet you a lot of viewers or audiences are gonna immediately tune out. Unfortunately, they're gonna check out right after Drake Bell. And I wish they wouldn't. I wish you wouldn't, but you will. Because you'll be like, who are these other cast members? Because unless you actually watch all that back in the day, you'll be like, I only know Drake Bell, and Drake Bell is the episode 3 with Drake Bell. That was like the earth shattering episode, right? That's the one that got trending on Twitter. That's the one that got everybody talking about this documentary. That episode 3 was the it of Quiet on Set. So that's, I think, the mistake of having Drake Bell be the first interviewee on this episode 5. I think I think the downside is right after he's done, people are gonna tune out. Um, and I would be right on that because Drake Bell is the you gotta save the if you want to really have everybody tuning into this episode 5, just have Drake Bell be the last one. But hey, I'm not the one producing or putting together this episode 5. So, but yeah, that would be part of my criticism of this episode 5. Okay, so as I said, we're gonna analyze it bullet point by bullet point to break down this episode 5. Let's talk or discuss about Will Friedle and Ryder Strong now, saying they apologize, they didn't know, not that they didn't know, but they were like, in hindsight, they probably should not have written that letters of support on behalf of Brian Peck, and showing up at the courtroom on the side of Brian Peck. And on this episode 5, as you can see when this episode airs, Drake Bell was asked, is that apology sufficient? Do you accept it? And Drake Bell says something along the lines of, maybe not, because I worked with Will on Spider-Man and other projects before, but he didn't apologize to me then. But again, as you can see from Drake's response, Drake is very generous. Some might argue he's a bit too kind. Like he would give a lot of ropes for Will Friedle, a lot of lifeline, a lot of benefit of the doubt. On this episode 5, Drake, as soon as he said maybe not, but then, well, it is a tough subject to talk about, even between friends. So he's giving Will and Ryder so much benefit of the doubt. And that speaks to Drake's character. Kudos to him. I don't know. I would have gone in a negative way and held a grudge against Will and Ryder. But it goes to also the next question though, and I want to pass this question to you guys. I mean, the Will, Ryder, and all these other famous people who sat in the courtroom on the side of Brian Peck and who wrote letters of support to Brian Peck. Did they know what Brian Peck did prior to writing those letters? I mean, what I'm getting at is, did Brian come to them, hey, can you write letters of support for me? Because I'm going on this trial. Maybe Brian did not disclose what his crimes were alleged, at the time. Maybe I'm giving Will and Ryder the benefit of the doubt too now. Maybe those people who wrote letters of support wrote those letters only because they knew Brian and have worked with Brian and did not experience any negative stuff from Brian during their working relationship duration. Do you see what I'm saying? They had a good experience. Unlike Drake Bell, who was sexually assaulted by Brian, the others are like, I had a good experience working with Brian. Maybe that's the impression that they were under when they wrote those letters, not knowing until maybe they sat in the courtroom. Oh my God, we wrote letters supporting this demon. We're sitting on this side. What the hell? Maybe, maybe. Um, I don't know. That's one of those questions that probably will never be answered. You know, unless Will Ryder and James Marsden and all the other guys said, yeah, at the time we did not know all the details. We were just supporting who we thought was our collaborator and friend, Brian Peck. We did not know until we entered the courtroom and found out, oh my God. Unless they said that, we'll never know. But that is the question, right? Uh, what do you think? Do you think that they had no clue when they wrote those letters and when they show up at the courtroom, or they had a clue, some sort of a clue as to Brian Peck's crimes against Drake Bell, you know? But yeah, that is a very that segment right there of Drake Bell commenting on Wilfredo and Ryder Strong is very. It looks very tough for him to even um, share how he felt about what Will and Ryder now feel, um, knowing that they've worked together in the past and nothing happened in the past. By nothing happened, I mean Will did not say anything, you know, apologizing not whatsoever until now. So okay, about the line of questioning from Soledad O'Brien regarding why there was not a lot of media attention to that case at that time, almost 20 years ago now. Um, and Drake also, like, you know, as you can see on episode 5, was a little baffled. Yeah, why was there only little to no media attention on that? Well, the answer is simple. It took a Me Too movement to actually unravel the whole thing. You know, we can have our, you know, a lot of people have arguments against or pushback or criticism about Me Too, and you know, some of them are valid. But the one thing that we have to agree on is that Me Too breaks down that wall. You know, because before the Me Too, the industry and people who work in this industry are we're all conditioned to just trust the companies, trust the corporations, trust the big boys, you know. And we live in a society that also, on a bigger picture, we have been conditioned. We as a people have been conditioned to just be slave to corporations. We're like, you know what, you know, keep our head down, you know. And if there is one thing or one iota that could jeopardize the profitability of that company, you know, if there's anything that could jeopardize the company's way of making money, then you would be like a cancer that they could just cut out immediately. And so part of that, you know, the media back then is just like, unless it's really earth shattering, unless it's really, oh my God, what's going on, unless it's something like that, they're not going to cover it, at least back then. Now, after the post Me Too era, you know, it's the era of reckoning now. Everybody's gonna, you know, uh, whoever the bad guys are in the industry, we need to flush them out. So that's the mentality. It's sad that it took this long for the media to wake up, if you will. But that's the back then. Unfortunately, that was the culture, the mentality, and like, you know, it's like who was Drake Bell compared to, you know, somebody who was well connected like Brian Peck, right? You know, Brian Peck is well connected in the industry, and Drake Bell was just a rising star at the time. So okay, the part where Drake talked about his dad and mom and how he is currently mending his relationship with them, and Drake said after the docu came out, a lot of people went after my mom, and because if you watch the previous 4 episodes, remember that it's the dad that was like so suspicious of Brian, but the mom was like, "What are you doing? We, you know, uh, Drake is our golden goose, our, you know, money making machine, you know. So it kind of broke the family apart. And it took until the mother of Drake's girlfriend that finally, like, whoa, what's going on here? This is untowards what Brian has been doing to you. Not cool, not cool. It's we can't have this. So a lot of the fans, when the previous 4 episodes aired, hailed the mother of Drake's girlfriend as the hero, and considered the biological mother of Drake Bell as the villain for not protecting Drake Bell from Brian Peck. And so on this episode 5, Drake Bell kind of took that guilt away from his mom and put it back on Brian Peck and said Brian was manipulative. He was so good at manipulating people and getting people to trust him. So, and that's fine. That's fine. If Drake wants to do that, if Drake wants to, like, hey guys, please back off from my mom, that's fine. That's his prerogative. But I'm not going to let her off the hook. I'm sorry. I'm not letting her off the hook. Any parent who can't see that somebody like Brian is hovering and like being a potential danger around your kid is a bad parent. Okay? Because if you prioritize, like, oh, show business comes first, my son's safety comes second. I'm not saying that is what she was thinking, but that's what it comes off as. That's the optics. That's what it comes across as. The dad was like, I don't want this guy around. But the mom's like, it's okay to have this guy around. So you see why I'm not letting her off the hook. If I had a kid, I'm not a parent yet, but if I had a kid someday, I would be like very overprotective on who I would allow to be around my kid. I'd be like, let me see some ID. let me do some vetting on you. Are you a good person or are you a bad person? Let me do some background check. Maybe not that, not that FBI-ish, but I would be very, very careful, especially in this business, man. Holy crap. So it speaks volumes when she chose to have Brian around more than to side with Drake Bell's dad. So it's okay for Drake said, hey, back off my mom. It was Brian, that got her fooled. That's fine if he said that, but I'm not letting her off the hook. Okay. It speaks volumes, as about her character as a person throughout all that. Okay, the part about Josh Peck. A lot of the fans online have been attacking Josh and calling him out and said something along the lines of like, you're not supporting Drake and all the other stuff. And so there's a part on this episode 5 about that. And again, Drake is very gracious, very generous. He gives Josh a lot of benefit of the doubt. He defends Josh. Drake is just a nice guy, man. I don't know if I would be that nice if I was in his shoes, if I was a victim, if I was, I would be pissed off at everybody, that left me hanging 2 decades ago. But would I consider Josh a villain? I don't know. I don't think so. And he did reach out, right? He did kind of like want to mend that broken relationship with Drake. And so there's an effort there. There's an attempt there. And so credit where credit is due. I would put more of the blame on Drake's biological mom than I would on Josh, right? Maybe Josh could have been more supportive. He could have been less dismissive during that time. He could have done more, and yeah, he could have been all of that. But he wasn't the one who brought Brian Peck into Drake's life. right? And so back then he was also just a kid, Josh Peck. It's not like he could be just, how do you call that? Like standing in the way of between Drake and Brian, like kind of being a kind of like a blocker kind of thing. It's not like he could do that. He was just a kid too back then. So I don't know the details of the drama between Drake and Josh, but I would let him go, let Josh go. At least that's my opinion. As for the mother of Drake Bell or Drake's mom, no, I'm not letting her off the hook. Okay, now let's get on to the Giovanni and Brian part of the interview on episode 5. Again, I hope audiences would keep tuning in. I doubt that they would. I think after the Drake Bell part, they might most likely tune out or check out, or watch WrestleMania or some other thing. But I hope they tune in, or maybe catch it later on the streaming service, Max streaming service, this portion of the interview because it's also important. Um, and Giovanni and Brian got to react to the apology video, with an air quotation apology video by Dan Schneider that Dan posted on his YouTube channel. By the way, that video was laughable. That video was so laughable. The interviewer was another cast member from back in the day, and he was just giving softballs after softballs after softball to the center of the plate, and he was just trying. You can tell he was trying to rescue Dan's reputation with every question. Even when he said like, Dan, what about this? That was not cool, man. But and there was no follow up. I think that YouTube interview with Dan Schneider would have been more productive, substantive. It would have been better if the interviewer was Soledad O'Brien or somebody who would grill Dan Schneider and not let him get away with just, oh yeah, I'm sorry. If I had known now what I did not, if I had known now what I knew then, I would have treated differently. I would have a different workplace. I would not have asked people to massage me. Like, dude, you're just saying that because this docu has exposed you. You're just saying that now. You're just trying to save face, Dan. You're just trying to, you know, do a PR damage control. That's what you're doing with that YouTube interview. That's why you picked that guy to interview you, because that guy was, you know, trying to save your reputation too, or save your image. Um, but credit where credit's due. Just like Drake Bell said on episode 5, Dan was the only one who defended him, like defended meaning like supported, like uh, uh and he was there for Drake throughout the trial against Brian Peck. So we can cast a lot of stones on Dan Schneider as to the disgusting ways he treats his coworkers, his writers, and the disgusting jokes in his on his kids shows. We can criticize him for all that, but credit where credit is due. When it matters most for Drake, Dan was there, so we got to give that credit to him. Unfortunately, because he's a bad guy. Otherwise, but yeah. So Giovanni and Brian also in agreement, like because they reacted to that YouTube video. It's like, yeah, you had your chances in the past to apologize, to fix your ways. You're just doing that now because you have been exposed. That the docu put a spotlight on you. That's why you did that YouTube video. All right, regarding Brian and his mom getting interviewed with Soledad O'Brien, also a fantastic segment. Also gives some good insights uh, as to the way the people of color cast members were treated on the set of all that and all the other Nickelodeon shows. And they released a never before seen footage of one of the cast members saying, being pulled aside by one of the producers or the directors, like, hey, don't make too much of a fuss because that other person is the big star. You're not the big star. So, and that's also a culture in this industry. By industry, I mean movies and TV, or Hollywood. Something that recently Rebecca Ferguson from Dune movies, revealed, right, or exposed, how she stood up to the main guy on the set, the main star, the lead star, because she was also pulled aside. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so sorry, but that guy is the star. You can't really ruffle too many feathers here." So, but in the case of Quiet on Set, the equivalence of Rebecca Ferguson was these cast members who happen to be persons of color, or black cast members, if you will. And so there's also an underlying racism in there, in addition to, hey, you're a nobody compared to the star of the show. So just take it, just take it. And I think that um, treatment, I think it's still going around, unfortunately. No matter this docu or this interview on episode 5, no matter Rebecca Ferguson, that expose that went viral, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there's always a hierarchy, on the set. There's always a hierarchy. There's always like, here's the star. You're here, and here's the other guy. The director's here. So there's levels to how important this person is compared to how important that person is. Um, Unfortunately, there's no cure to that. Um, the studios, the networks, the producers, the filmmakers, the showrunners, they could do better when they set the, when they, before the camera starts rolling, they can really set the rules on the set, like, okay, um, no egos allowed. Check your egos at the door, something along those lines. But unless they do that, it's gonna happen. And unfortunately, it happens more towards cast members who are people of color. It is there. I don't know what the solution is. I think even as this docu exposed it, even as Rebecca Ferguson exposed it, it's just something that's gonna continue to happen, unfortunately, on the set in Hollywood movies or TV set. Um, yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that, and I'm glad that they talked about that also on this interview. Whether or not this portion of the interview could change that culture of Hollywood, like, hey, the main guy can get away with anything because that he's the main star. I don't know I don't know if this interview will change anything at all. I don't know if Rebecca Ferguson's expose will change anything at all. That's my 2 cents. It's just something that unfortunately is going to continue to happen. So yeah, overall, I give this episode 5 of Quiet on Set the rating of 4 out of 5. If you watch the previous 4 episodes, then this episode 5 is a must see. Now, recently there's been a controversy regarding one of the old Nickelodeon hosts, Mark Summers, who walked out, I should say, walked out of the interview with the directors of Quiet on Set because he felt that he was ambushed. And you know what? In hindsight, maybe they should have left Mark Summers out of the docu at all. They kind of included him in just for a few minutes. I get why they wanted to do that because Mark Summers was like the big host back in the day. But this whole controversy with Dan Schneider and Brian Peck happened after the era of Mark Summers. So there's no need to include his soundbite at all. So that was a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? A blunder on the director's part. The directors are 2 female directors, by the way. So yeah, a lot of people who are not in agreement with this docu are latching on to that Mark Summers controversy to say, aha, see, ambush, ambush. That's not cool, man. That's unethical. Journalists don't do that. Like, okay, yeah. In hindsight, that's a blunder. They probably should not have invited Mark Summers at all, and because Mark Summers only had good experience. He only had good memory working with Nickelodeon, so he may not have been the right person to be interviewed for this kind of stuff. If you're doing an expose, which this docu is doing an expose. So, but other than that, other than this one blunder, you can't use that blunder to kind of like just blanket say, "Hey, that's why this docu sucks." No, this docu is very, very important. You got to approach it with a nuance. Yes, on two things can be true at once, right? Two things can be true simultaneously. Yes, you made a mistake for inviting Mark Summers because that's not the subject that he's associated with. He's only had good memories with Nickelodeon. The other thing is like, yeah, it's also true that this expose needs to happen. It needs to inform the audiences. It needs to inform the public that, hey, we should stop being conditioned to just accept whatever hierarchical bosses or corporations that just whatever they give us, we should just take it. No, we can push back. We can say, hey, that's wrong. We can say that's not right. How dare you? We can say that. So that's what I hope this docu would give an impact to our societies for us to speak up. Strong person stands up for himself. A stronger person stands up for others, or stand up for those who can't speak. And so that's the underlying theme, or the purpose, or the mission or objective, however you want to call it, and the goal of Quiet on Set. Hopefully, that's my hope at least. So that's it. That's my review of episode 5 of Quiet on Set documentary. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, subscribe. Let's wrap this.